Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden, and when I come back in mere moments, the fight against Trudeau's censorship law, the Online Harms Act, is heating up. Some good news. So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist. Yes, as my dear cat Sasha always demonstrated, please ring the bell. Please give us a thumbs up. Like the station early in the broadcast if you can. Subscribe if you wish. Resubscribe if you have to, because I hear this all the time. People are being unsubscribed by YouTube because of the station or because they're being deemed as bots. But please support the station if you can in any way. It's appreciated. I can't tell you how much it's appreciated because this has become a real driving concern for me. I believe I'm reaching people. What was I up to last night? Well, I was at a town hall meeting, actually in Carpe. It was labeled as West Ottawa, but it was at a church in Carpe. And John Carpay, the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, was there as the speaker. He had a fantastic message about the Online Harms Act and why it's so bad, why it's so odious. And he really came down hard and heavy against this potential law, this legislation that's going to be worming its way through the House of Commons up towards the Senate. And we have to stop this bill because it's going to put people like myself, others like me, perhaps even you, out of the social media network. We won't be able to talk. We won't be able to express our opinions. This is a bad, a dangerous, a sickening bill. And it's all about total censorship. And in addition to the really stupid things about this, putting people in prison for life, for so-called hate speech, for communicating hateful language. Ridiculous. Fining people $70,000 for doing that. Creating another layer of government, another bureaucracy to oversee this whole thing. Having an online censorship czar. This is all foolishness, but it's part of Trudeau's plan to control our lives, to control the speech, especially leading up to the next election in October 2025. So we have to fight this. I'm glad to say John Carpe is out there fighting this. That's why I went out to his town hall last night to listen to him and to see what he is doing. And he's fighting. He's got a petition, an online petition to fight this. But more importantly, he's engaging with audiences like he did last night. We need to do this. We really need to do this. But before I show you some clips from last night, I'm very happy to see that Conservative Party of Canada leader Pierre Poilievre, perhaps at my urging, I don't know, because I've been asking him to do this, yesterday at the Canada Strong and Free Conference here in Ottawa, he came out strongly against the Online Harms Act, especially that component of it that is essentially going to invent thought crime in Canada and put people under house arrest for what they potentially might say, for the things that they might be thinking, because some snitch of a neighbor doesn't like them and wants to accuse them of thought crime. But it's all true. Listen to what Pierre had to say about this yesterday. Congratulations, Pierre, for coming out eloquently and strongly on this issue.
On the internet, but he would then put forward another law which could put you under house arrest or a peace bond under suspicion of something unacceptable you might say in the future. This guy, if he had read 1984, he would have thought it was an instruction manual and not a warning.
an instruction manual. He would have thought 1984, meaning Justin Trudeau, was an instruction manual, not a warning for the future, because that's where we're going with this. I have talked to so many people south of the border, American journalists, American friends, who say, you must be kidding. This is like a parody of Justin Trudeau. He can't really be doing this, but he is. And we've got to fight this with all our might. Let's listen to how John Carpe summarizes that component of this bill. The most important things he said last night. And he really went on at length, and he called the thought crime component of this bill the most dangerous. And he had some other choice words for it. Let's listen.
This act is going to change the maximum penalty for advocating for genocide, which is a criminal code offense, is going to be changed from 5 years to life in prison. Compare that to maximum jail sentence for sexually assaulting a minor, which is 14 years. So, in effect, we've got this legislation that's saying that to advocate for genocide, maximum penalty, life in prison; to sexually assault a child, maximum 14 years. So,
we're not even putting murderers in jail for life. But this law, if it becomes a law, would put people guilty of hate speech, whatever that is, in jail for life. Let's listen more.
Advocating for genocide is worse than sexually assaulting a child, according to the mindset of this government. The fourth and probably scariest provision is preemptive punishment of people who have not committed any crime. And so if this bill C-63 passes, it's going to result in a situation where if I fear that you are going to commit a hate crime, hate speech, anti-Semitism, whatever, I can file a complaint and I can force you to appear before a provincial court judge. And I can say that I fear that you are going to say something hateful. And if the judge thinks that I have reasonable grounds for my fear, he can order you under house arrest, ankle bracelet, curfew, abstain from alcohol or drugs, provide blood or urine samples to prove that you're not taking alcohol or drugs, take away your legally acquired, legally owned firearms if you have any. Those are the conditions the judge can impose on you because I fear that you might say something hateful in future. This is terrifying. You know, that you can get these restrictions placed on you, house arrest, curfew, because somebody else fears that you might say something hateful in future. Now, supporters of this bill will say, oh, you know, that'll never happen, don't worry about it, and the judge is not going to grant that, you know, willy-nilly. And you know what, they might be partially correct, but the process is the punishment. Why should I be hauled to court in the first place based on somebody fearing that I might do something bad in the future? That's not how our criminal law operates. If you've committed a crime, the police is there, the Crown prosecutors are there, the judicial system is there, and you know we prosecute people if they have committed a crime. You don't place somebody under house arrest because they might commit a crime in the future. This is sick, this is twisted, it's dangerous, and it's scary. And all of this, it's
sick, twisted, dangerous, and scary. He's already called it terrifying. I think he's really hit the nail on the head.
It's for the children, right? Huh? You know, you can't be against the Online Harms Act. You love don't you care about protecting children? There is nothing in the Online Harms Act that it's trying to accomplish that is not already a criminal code offense. Okay, if you post on the internet a naked photo of somebody without their consent, that's a criminal code offense already. Revenge porn, already, to post that online, already criminal. Advocating for terrorism, already criminal. Hate speech, already criminal. Uttering threats, if I threaten you, criminal code offense to utter threats. Intimidation, criminal code offense. So we've got all these criminal code offenses. So this is to take away freedoms by adding on a whole new layer and new armies of bureaucrats employed by the Human Rights Commission
So I don't think it can be any more succinct than that, any clearer than that. This is a terrifying bill because the process is the punishment. It's exactly what Freedom Convoy organizer Tamara Leach said to me as she's gone through 9 months of a court trial. The process is the punishment. Even if she is declared innocent, as she should be, she's gone through all of the financial hardship of a trial, of having to hire lawyers, of having to travel back and forth from her home in Medicine Hat to Ottawa. And that's what's going to happen to people accused of hate crimes. There's going to be a legal encumbrance, and there's going to be massive dislocation in their life, even if they are deemed to be innocent of all charges. That's very important. I can't emphasize that enough. There's another reason this is an odious piece of legislation that's designed to put a gag on your mouth because you say, well, maybe I'm going to win the court case. But is it worth it? Is it worth risking being charged? Because it puts that chill. It's like a libel chill, except it's a chill on everything that might offend anybody, anything that could be deemed hate speech, that could be offensive. And don't think they're not going to apply this against political enemies, against their opponents. That's what the law is all about. And that's why we need to keep fighting it. Now, I asked John specifically about what has happened in Scotland, where they have recently passed the Hate Speech and Good Order, or Public Order Bill Act. It's now the Act. And of course, immediately there is a huge increase in complaints of hate crimes and counterclaims, counter accusations. So I asked John about this, and let's listen to how we responded to that.
Happy to be here tonight. Thank you for coming and for stating this case so eloquently tonight. Two-part question. I wonder if you have any response to what Scotland has just gone through. They have issued and passed the Hate Speech and Public Order Act, and I was speaking to my friend Neil Oliver this week about that. And of course, he concurs with me that this is a disaster, but the response from the public was fascinating. They had more complaints from both sides, counter accusations of hate speech, supposed hate crimes, that it's already clogged up the police and potentially the courts. Do you think this is a good omen, that it might prove that this is an unworkable law, not just an irrational one, but an unworkable one? And the second part of my question, do you think we have enough time before the next election, October 2025, the next 18 months, to stop this legislation? Thank you.
Well, you've partially answered your own question. I have not followed the Scotland developments too much, but I've heard the media reports that as soon as it came into force, they were flooded with thousands of complaints, which is probably a good thing to clog up the wheels. Because it does have a chilling effect. It is applied selectively and politically, and I've seen that over and over again, where depending on who you say the thing about that is offensive, you're going to get prosecuted or not. The next 18 months, 18 months is a long time in politics, but it's just important to, while this is going on right now, it's not that valuable or effective to complain about legislation once it's been proclaimed into force. I'm not saying it can never be changed. It can be, but the time to be active on this is now against the bill C-63, the Online Arms Act, and then C-367, the religious defense. There's an old French proverb: if you don't do politics, then politics will be done unto you.
I had never heard that particular French proverb before. If you don't do politics, politics will be done unto you. And that's precisely where we are now. If we don't fight this legislation, it will become law. And once it becomes law, it's very hard to reverse the process because it suddenly becomes a vested interest. Look at any piece of legislation that was controversial at the time, and it's rarely ever repealed because it suddenly becomes a vested interest for so many people, and it becomes a political hurdle to try to reverse it because you're seen as reactionary. But how is the public reacting? I had a look at a Leger poll this morning before I did this broadcast, and it's quite interesting. This was conducted from March 8th to 10th. 1,527 Canadians about the Online Harms Act. Disturbing results, and don't ever think one poll says it all. But even if one poll says this, I'm disturbed. 70% of respondents said they support the government's overall plan to regulate online content. 25% said they disagreed with the move. Now, that's a very vague and general question, of course. Yes, everybody may think, or 70% of Canadians might think, well, it's a good idea to regulate. But what does regulate mean? Only 41% of respondents said they believe the legislation will actually create safer online platforms, including making it safer to remove sexually abused images. When asked if they trust the federal government to regulate online content in a way that protects individual free speech, only a small minority, 10%, said they completely trust the government. Another 33% answered they somewhat trust the government. 27% said they do not trust the government at all, while 23% answered they barely trust the government. And only 17% of those respondents said Justin Trudeau and the Liberals can be trusted. So there's good news and bad news here. But as usual, if you give the Canadians the questions you want them to answer in the affirmative, they will answer it that way. I think if we show and demonstrate how dangerous this legislation is, and we need to work hard to educate the public right now about this, we're going to have a massive majority of Canadians saying no. And there's another facet to this. John Carpe, unfortunately, wasn't entirely aware of the ramifications of this aspect, but I'm increasingly becoming aware of it. And that's one of the facets of this bill will penalize, financially punish social media platforms for material that the digital czar, the online censorship czar, and the regulatory body deems to be hateful. It's between 8 and 10% of their gross revenue. So that's millions, potentially tens of millions, in some cases, perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars in fines. So what do you think the reaction is going to be from Facebook, Meta, X, all the social media platforms that we enjoy right now? Are they going to say to hell with Canada and its Online Harms Act because we can't afford it, or we just don't want to lose that much money? That's, again, the chill effect of this law. We could lose access to internet, to social media. No more shows like this. No more new media. No more independent media, because it's going to be swallowed up in the Online Harms Act and Trudeau's totalitarian attack on your free speech. That's the dangerous thing about this. And that's another facet of this. I heard this recently from a lawyer who was appearing on another online show, and he talked extensively about that. And that's one thing I missed entirely about this bill. Yeah, I could see the prison sentences. I could see the other fines for individuals. I could see the thought crimes, but I had not seen this. And that's significant. We could be losing social media platforms because of this bill. Even before it's implemented, they might say, we're out of here because we can't afford to do this. I'm going to leave the last word on this today to my good friend Neil Oliver, who was a guest on my program this week. I hope you had a chance to watch the interview. If you haven't, please do. It's still there. It was a great conversation. with a good friend. We have become very, very good friends over the course of the last 6 months, largely because we are both talking about the same things. And I think what he says here is so profound, because we are on the verge of living in a society where the government hands us the script. That's what you can say today. That's what you can think today. But Neil says it, I think, much better.
Now that we're increasingly finding ourselves in the grip of that narrow group of people who would rather that none of that disagreement and discussion and debate was happening. Mm-hmm. They just want to hear everyone say, and they want to think and be persuaded that everyone thinks the way that they do. And it's existential. It's an existential crisis. And that's what's underpinning all this bit about coming up with a term of words like stirring up hatred. It's absolute nonsense. That's just deliberately opening a doorway for those people who are anti-human and don't like the way that people are and don't like the way that people think, to have control over the way in which people express themselves quite naturally, and how they think and how they do the things that they do. And I think we're at a point that you and I, I think that you and I are, we're on the same wavelength. People like us, have to realize that we've been nudged to the tip of a precipice. And if we don't hold back, if we don't prevent ourselves and others like us from being pushed over the edge into that precipice, we're going to be a world where you just get handed a laminated bit of paper that says, these are the things that you can say today. These are the things that you can think today. And if you say anything different or think anything different, there will be consequences.
There will be consequences. And that's where we're going. That's where we almost are. And it's quite frightening, terrifying, as John Carpay said at this meeting last night. So I'm glad I had a chance to share that with you. By the way, I ran into a lot of folks at the church last night. It was at the Ottawa West Community Church out in Carpe. And I ran into a lot of folks who either watch this program or have seen me report every week on Redacted, or even read some of my journalism articles on the Post Millennial and the Epoch Times, and Human Events. So it's always nice to run into people, to know you're not talking in a vacuum. And I thank you every time you see me. If you're at an event and you see me, come up and say hello. Tell me you watch this program. Tell me that what I'm doing is in some way useful and is needed. Because I'm fighting hard against Trudeau's censorship. I'm fighting for myself, my right to free speech, but I'm also fighting for your right to free speech. And that's what we're going to keep doing on this program, Stand on Guard, on this channel, Krayden's Right, because I think we're worth it. I think Canada's worth it. After all the damage Trudeau has inflicted on this country, I still think this country's worth it. And we're going to keep fighting for freedom. Thanks for watching. Thank you for watching this episode of Stand on Guard and being a part of the Krayden's Right channel. If you've watched this episode to this point, you've watched it all. And that's really important for a small station like this. We always say subscribe, hit the bell, be a part of the Krayden resistance. Resolve to resist. That's what we're doing. And if you become a subscriber, if you're a supporter of this station or a member through Substack, through YouTube, and now you can be a local as well, that's so important to us because I couldn't do this without you. I made a decision to become an independent journalist about a year ago because I wanted to bring all of my experience in the military, in journalism, to you. I don't promise anything I can't deliver. I don't offer clickbait. I offer truth. The truth is out there. And it's my job to bring that truth to light and to you. Thanks for being a part of the Krayden's Right resistance, and we'll see you again